Welcome back. This is day 11 of my new program or system in which I every day or almost every day analyze my Lichess rapid game from the previous evening. In this case for me it's Sunday, so I didn't do a video on this yesterday, but I have two Lichess rapid games to analyze. This is the first one. This one, it says that I did lose, but I had one blunder and two mistakes. Can you see on the graph there when I hover over blunder, it shows it near the end, so it looks like it was actually my mistakes that lost me the game. I only had a mild advantage right here because my opponent made one mistake, and it wasn't until move 17 that either one of us made a mistake. So unlike many of my previous videos, I'm going to go to that point, but I am going to go move by move just so you can see what happened. I wasn't sure exactly what to do here, but apparently I did okay because the evaluation shows us very close or at even throughout this entire segment. So I was pretty happy with that. Even here, we're at zeros according to the game review. Then after I put my queen here, and I don't know if that was my best move, but it looks like it was one of my best moves. I think the reason that I did it was to keep their pawn from coming down here because my knight is already guarding that square. Also, I might want to move my knight to that square to block the pawn, and if they took, then I could take back with my queen, right? Okay, now my opponent made a mistake here. What they should have played was rook to b1, or queen to e2, rook f to b1, rook f to e1, or rook a to c1. So they needed a rook on one of those three files or the queen here according to those top three moves, but instead they moved their queen over in front of their king. Immediately I saw that it was pinning the knight by doing that, and it looks like there's only, well actually there are multiple moves that take advantage of that, and one of them was the one that I played. But that was counted as inaccurate, not a mistake. What I did was play knight to f5, which of course is a fork of the queen and the bishop. The engine thinks it would have been better for me to play knight to e4, which isn't a fork, but does target the queen. So that's why I don't understand why that's better. It does force the queen to move, and it's protected by this pawn. So the queen could go to g4, the queen could go to h3, but only the first two maintain the -1 here. Okay, so what if they had just moved over one? Then I could have played knight to g6, which is here, but that they wouldn't take. It says that they would not take. Okay. Yeah, so I don't understand why knight to e4 is better than what I played. Knight to f5 is what I played, and it says that was inaccurate, and now it's getting very close to even. My opponent has five moves that are all about the same. Queen to f4, queen to g5, queen to h3, queen to f3. And in all of those cases, the engine expects that I would play knight to e4 afterward. All of them. Okay, well my opponent did play one of those, and I thought the reason that I put this here was that after they moved their queen I would take their bishop, but it says no. I should play knight to e4, which, okay, I see that does also target the queen, but then they would just go to g4. I mean, they might not go to g4. I don't know where they would go, but it says after that I would want to play f6 to target the knight there. Okay, so let's say I had played this, which of course tells the queen to move. Their best move by far is just to drop back one. They would be in trouble if they went all the way back, because then I would play rook f to e8. I probably wouldn't. But in most of those, it says I would play f6. I'm not even going to count the one where they capture on f5. It says that's their fifth best move, is to take this knight. Okay, but what if they just moved over one? Why is that bad? That queen to h5? Good, then I have all kinds of moves that are good, including moving up the f pawn, but also rook a to e8 or rook f to e8. Okay, well, as usual, I don't have a ton of time to spend on chess at all, all of chess, but so that tells me that specifically on this move, if I don't understand it in a certain amount of time, I've trained myself to just move on, because otherwise I'll spend it all on this move instead of going to the next move, which I might very well understand. So what I did was, after they moved the queen, I took their bishop, which is bad because they take back, and now they have an advantage if they play knight to e4. No, sorry, if I play knight to e4, it's my turn. I did play knight to e4 now, but now it's not as good as it was before for some reason. But my opponent didn't respond perfectly, because now I can play f6. I did play f6. Okay, they have to drop the knight back to d3, and now I can take their queen. I did take their queen, and they took back, and I have to play king to f7, because this pawn is hanging. Or rook f to e8, I guess, to protect that pawn. Or e5, but only those first two. Only the rook here or the king here, I guess, really protect that pawn and would have been okay. Okay, well, I saw that they could probably hit that pawn, but I thought I could go after their rook. And that turned out to be the mistake that I never recovered from. Because when they moved that rook over, I should have put the knight on b3, which would aim for the other rook, but then they would move it over too, and then what would I do? It says then I would take this pawn and they would take it. Right, so that's why I wouldn't go there. So I went back to a safe place here. But that's a blunder because they take here and I have to move my rook. I did move my rook. And then they did that. And now I need to put it on d7. Why? So they can attack it with a pawn? It says that they wouldn't, but they probably would. But I did that instead because I thought that pawn might be thinking about coming forward. But oh, the reason I need to go to d7 is to defend that pawn, and I didn't. And they took that pawn. Now they have two connected passed pawns. I didn't see any point in continuing. Okay. I'm afraid I'm not going to learn a bunch from that. Again, I think here that, like I said, this is the mistake that lost me the game. I think I could have figured out how to move my king up there to protect the pawn. I did know that it was weak. That's why I played this. I was thinking danger levels. I was thinking that the rook is more important than the pawn, but I guess what I didn't see is that after I moved there and they did this, then wherever I go, I still can't defend this pawn, and my knight's in trouble. So I should have defended it first. That's all I'm going to be able to take away from this game. Let me go on to last night's game. I do remember from this game at the end thinking, wondering, I guess, whether my opponent and I had both played perfectly because we made it to the 50 move rule. And at no point did I ever sense that I had an advantage. And I thought maybe my opponent and I played a 118 move game really well. But it turns out that we each had 3 blunders, but on top of that, I had 2 mistakes. But it does look like I had a huge advantage twice and then a small advantage once on this graph. My opponent was ahead more than I was, but I did have chances. So yeah, 118 move game. We each ended with about a minute on the clock. I kept thinking my opponent would offer a draw, but they never did, and I'm not the type to offer one. I would have taken it because I was pretty sure during most of this with just the rooks on the board that it is a theoretical draw. I didn't think that they could, force me to lose in any way, and apparently that's true according to this line down here on the graph. Let's go find out where we made some mistakes. It looks like I made one pretty early. No, not where. Okay, the first mistake wasn't until move 19, but it was mine. Okay, well, once again, let's move through a little quickly. Just like we did in the last game, they played the mirror or symmetrical version of the English until that move. But according to the graph here, I just have a very slight advantage. This is the game review. I don't have Stockfish running right now because I don't want to overtax my computer until I need it. We took and took there. I played this pawn. They took and I took, and we're still close to even. We're between -1 and +1, which I count as even at my level and most of the time that it is. Although it favors me slightly here. I played this to keep their knight or bishop from coming into b4, and then they played that, possibly for the same reason, although I don't have a piece that was about to go in there. Yeah, I played b4, they played b5, and I'm up +1, and then we traded here, giving them an extra center pawn, but now I'm up +1.3. Okay, this is my first inaccuracy here. I did this because in a game very recently, that's what I was supposed to do in a very similar situation because this bishop develops very late in the English, at least the few times that I've played the English. I should have played knight to e2 here. Oh, is that to protect the f4 push? Or bishop to h3, not this one. This one, bishop to h3. Oh, because that pawn's weak. Okay. Not weak, it's undefended. They would have to go here to defend it, and then it would be pinned. So then I would put another attacker on it, but then they would block my rook from pointing at it by putting the knight on e4. No, sorry, I got the first and 2 lines mixed up. Never mind. Yeah, once their queen was up, they could put the other knight back there to help defend that pawn. Okay, that's if I had started with bishop to h3. Or rook to e1 now. Okay, I need to make a sticky note for myself. Next time I play the English, play rook to e1 at some point, because I didn't here. Or queen to d3. Okay, I guess I see that. That would continue defending this while also defending that. Or bishop to e3. In a previous game, like I said, the reason I put the bishop here is because that's what it had suggested to do in a previous game. But here, it only took away some of my advantage. Rook to c8 was one of their better moves. And I did put the knight on e2 eventually. They should play... not this, but that. Okay, that put us over +1 again. Only if I'll play bishop to h3 again, because that pawn's still undefended. Or rook to c1, I guess to pin the knight. Or rook to e1, or queen to d3, or queen to d2. I guess to get out from between the rooks, and just leave that there because my knight's defending it. Okay, well, that took away most of my advantage, and now I have to play... Oh, I did play rook to e1. Okay, so I didn't need the sticky note. I just did it a few turns too late. But I remembered, and my opponent played their first inaccuracy, which was here, and I shouldn't have taken it. Okay, it was my 4th best move to take it. I should have played knight to f4, and it says they would have played g5, and then I would have had to play knight to h3, and then they would have played rook to c7. I don't think that they would have, but I don't know what would have happened. But I'm not sure what this does. It's not really aiming for that undefended pawn because the pawn is currently defended. I just thought if I took here, they took back. That doubles those 2 pawns. It gets out of the way of my d pawn. Then I can move this knight someplace. I don't know where. And then my rook would be pointed at that pawn. That was my idea. Yeah, I don't know that I'm going to find this, but f3, okay, f3 is my second best move. I could probably find that. Or it suggests putting my rook back to f1. That I'll probably never find because I just moved my rook to e1, and Stockfish had wanted me to move it to e1 a lot, and I did it, and now it wants me to put it back. All right, but I took there, and they took back. Now I played knight to f4, but it's a blunder. Okay, my first blunder. If I had done it a turn ago, it would have been my best move, or 2 turns ago, whatever it was. But now it's a blunder. But again, the whole idea was that nothing's defending this pawn. But I have to play rook to c1 or rook to b1. Nobody knows why I need to play rook to b1 because they're not coming after that pawn just yet. Rook to f1, queen to b3. Okay, queen to b3 would pin that pawn. I get that, I guess. Would pin their rear e pawn. King to g2. That just looks like it's inviting their queen to move up. If I play king to g2, doesn't it invite this and then they can push that pawn and it'll be check? It says no. It says if I play this, they're going to play rook to c7. Okay, well, I'm not going to find rook to b1. I guess c1 I could find because it is an open file. f1, probably not going to find. Queen to b3. I think I did find queen to b3 here in maybe a few more turns. No, maybe that was a different game. Okay. Well, that's what I had intended to do, and that only works if they take this pawn here. Oh, because they have 2 pieces pointed at my d pawn. Okay. And I used to be defending it, but now I'm not. But they took with their queen, which was a blunder. And my best move is to take back. But I have a bunch of moves that keep us at even. Okay, well, I took here because that's a fork, and I thought if they take my queen, I can take back, and then my 2 rooks will be on, center files here. So I did that. That gave my opponent a slight advantage, and it was a blunder for them to take me because I will take back, and now I'm ahead, even if they play their best move, which they did. And now I'm supposed to take this pawn. Why didn't I take the pawn? Why didn't I take the pawn? That seems obvious, doesn't it? Just now I thought, oh, I must have taken this pawn until I looked at my move order, which was this. Oh, because I wanted to put 2 attackers on the pawn. But now we're close to even again. They move this forward, and now I should take the pawn here with my rook again, or with my knight. Either way is pretty close to even. Or put my rook over there. Well, now it makes sense because that pawn's under attack. Or play knight to b7, which I guess encourages that pawn to take. Or king to f1, all right. But I took that pawn. That's a mistake. Now my opponent has an advantage, but not if they take back. They have an advantage if they play knight to e5, and then I would take this pawn with my knight, and they would have the advantage to give up their e pawn. But instead they took one of my pawns, and it put the advantage very slightly back, and I decided to take this pawn. After all, they took back, and I took back. And now we're drawn for a long time, or very close to drawn. It looks like, according to the graph here, that there's one of us had a very slight advantage for a little while, and the other one had a very slight advantage for a little while. But I'm not going to focus on those. I'm just going to move here until we get to the point of my mistake or blunder. No, sorry, my opponent's mistake or blunder. I did not know that we were drawn through all of this. I just know that I started this off with like an extra pawn or 2, but I ended up with less pawns. And then at this point, I have less pawns, but I think I can hold their king, right? So we're playing. What happens here? How long does it take us to get to this alleged blunder by my opponent? We're getting close according to the graph. There you can see it kind of cropping up on the move list. Oh, that was a blunder on my part, which gave my opponent an advantage. Okay, I was incorrect here. I had a bunch of moves that kept us even. Rook to b1, rook to b2, rook to b8 check, rook to f7 check, or king to f5. Okay, well, the reason I played that, I'll just be honest. I was getting tired of the game. I didn't know whether I would be able to stop this pawn, but I thought I probably would. Like, if it moved one forward, I ought to be able to do this. And I thought, what if right here they moved their pawn? And then I would checkmate them. That's what it was hope chess. I admit it. But I didn't realize it was a blunder that gave away the game. All they have to do, they only have one move. It has to be rook to f4 check. Sorry, that's f4, not down here. And then I would probably come toward them, and then they would play the pawn. But then I would come back here, wouldn't I? Oh, but then they would have this because of their pawn. But okay, I think I understand. Because their pawn's close enough now that if they can get their rook on this file, they'll have this once their pawn is on g2. And the pawn will be protecting the rook. And then they can promote behind it if I don't take. And if I do take, they can promote anyway. Okay. But that was the only move. And that's pretty complex. That's I don't want to say high level, but it's higher level than normal level for me and my opponents. It's at least intermediate, if not edging into advanced, because you're going to have to be able to see several moves ahead to see the pawn on g2 and the rook on f1. Okay, so for future reference, I have to be aware that once this pawn gets to g2, they're going to have the resource of getting their rook right here. So what I should have played was rook to b1 or b2. b2 guards the next square for the pawn. b1 would allow me to get in front of it, I guess. And it says if I played rook to b1, we're going to go into a variant here that they have a bunch of moves that keeps us even, but this would keep us even, and I can get in front of it, but I don't have to. I could just play king to f5. Okay, I get that. Oh, to keep their rook from getting behind it. Okay, I think I understand that. Let's back up. Okay, so what I actually played was this. As I said, it was hope chess. I was kind of hoping they would just go ahead and push the pawn, and then I would mate them, right? Because if they played this, that's checkmate in one, rook to b8. I knew that. But almost any other move, they would be fine. I mean, I guess if they just did this, it would still be, mate pretty close because I would have to check and they would block. But my opponent saw that I was trying to do a checkmate because apparently they know how to checkmate with the rook also. So they just moved their king out of the way. But that turned out to be a blunder and left us even again. And then we were even for the rest of the game. And I was eventually able to get their pawn by getting my king over there. And then we just had rooks. So we just did this for 50 moves after I took that pawn. Okay, so there was just one moment where my opponent had an opportunity because I messed up. For some reason, I mistakenly thought that it was me that had an opportunity, but I didn't. Okay. Yeah, I'm just going to speed this up because there's, if you're careful, as long as you don't put your king in the same line as your rook and let them check you and win, your rook, then they can beat you. As long as you don't do that, they can't beat you in this situation, at least in my experience. So... And we made it to move 118 there. Oh, I should have turned off Stockfish. Okay. So the point at which I had my biggest advantage was 1.9 was here, and I should have taken the pawn. Yeah. That one seemed obvious to me when I was going through it just now. Obviously, not when I was playing the game. I think what I thought when I put this knight this way, which, took us back to right at even, not only would it block their rook from coming down because it would be protected by the pawn, but it also would aim at this pawn. So when I played that, they should have pushed it forward, according to Stockfish. But playing a5 is just as good if I'll take this pawn now. But I should not have worried about that pawn over there. Why not? Because what if I had taken this pawn? They could have taken here, and then I would have taken back, and they would have... Oh, my rooks would be protecting there. They couldn't have taken back. But it says that they would. Wait, that's their best move, is to take there and give up their knight. Oh, because now my knight's hanging. So I could either move this over here to protect that knight, which is protecting my other rook, or I could just take this with check. They would take back, and then I would play rook to b1, which threatens both of these, but they would threaten my knight with rook to e5, and it would be best for me to threaten their rook for a second, but then it would just go to e4 to protect their knight. And even though they have a passed pawn and I don't, it would be very, very close to drawn. Wow, all of that because of this one decision for me to take that pawn there, but they can't take back. They have to play knight to e5. I'm not sure why, and let me have this pawn. Here it would have been better for them to give up a pawn than to take one of mine. So that took us back to even. Wow. Okay, I think I got a little bit more out of this game than I did the other one, especially that in-game mistake. I'm still working on in-games like a lot of people at my level, and I'm, obviously have a hard time seeing 4 or 5 moves in advance that they're, my opponent might not have seen, where they wanted their rook on the F file to be able to kind of sideways protect the pawn on its way down. But I should have been able to find that. I'll try to keep an eye out for that in the future if I ever make it that far in an end game. Hopefully you got something out of this too, and hopefully you're also getting better at chess. Thank you for spending your time here, and I will see you next time.